All right, we are live. You want to check your Facebook? Make sure you're on Facebook.
Yeah, I'm working on it now. Is it you or is it, there it is. I'll go from you. So we're added. Let's roll. We'll see what happens.
All right, you ready to go?
Let's rock it.
All right, cool. All right. So this is the Doc Griggs and Dr. Derry live COVID show as we are moving over to a new platform, which is YouTube.
Very different.
So we are getting used to all of this, and so it's a pleasure. I think we have one viewer, and for that one viewer, thank you. We appreciate you being here, if even it's one of our people. Dr. Griggs, you have a daily podcast called Noise Filters, and you can find Noise Filter on all of your podcast catchers, including Spotify, Google Play, and soon to arrive will be Apple. I am certainly personally awaiting that myself. So with that, Dr. Griggs, before we get started, anything, any words or?
Yeah, so the same words that we've been saying for a long time just got validated. It came out, the FDA updated regulations we can just talk about. We told y'all to be careful about the whole serology antibody testing. FDA updated their regulations like Dr. Aber discussed, we talked about last night. You have 10 days if you're trying to peddle in the antibody world without FDA authorization to get it together, or they will come after you. They'll stop your shipments at the border and they will shut you down, as well they should. The problem with antibody testing is, especially if it does not distinguish between SARS-CoV-2 and regular coronaviruses, is it can hurt you in the sense that it will give you a false sense of security, make you think that you're IgG positive, which is the long-term immunity to SARS-CoV-2, and you're not. The whole act and exercise of getting an antibody test these days is participating in the surveillance for the virus, which means it's an academic exercise. It's something that we need to know because of people that are walking around asymptomatic in the population, and people that might not know that they have it, in other words. So it'll let you know if you've been exposed, but that doesn't mean much to us right now because we don't know if you can be reinfected. We don't know how long the immunity lasts. We know what we know based on older viruses, but not specifically for this one. So in other words, if you're watching and on the rebroadcast, stop trying to peddle and sell those bootleg antibody tests. Stop calling Dr. Derry and I to come check out this test that you got because it's 98.5% certified and it's clear wave because of this guy said and this big long word. And but if it's not one of the 4, and there will be 12 over the next few days, according to the report, that the FDA puts their stamp on for, this is emergency use authorization. That's totally different than the regular authorization. It's only because of the pandemic that they're trying to, what they're doing is actually a data surveillance test that they're trying to authorize. It's not diagnostic. It's not meant to be used at home. So stop selling us, trying to hustle us with those bootleg tests. If you're in the general public and want to get tested, go with the PCR test and we'll take it from there.
Hey, Doc, you got to tell the story about, you're talking about these bootleg tests, man. Just, very, very generalities. Talk about the first time you got your hands on one of these bootleg tests.
So it was at 5:30 in the morning on the driveway of a fast food restaurant. It was still dark outside. I got 2 Ziploc bags with they look like food color dye containers and something that looked like it could be an instrument for measurement, and with no package insert, with no anything, and a guy talking really rough to me on the phone because he learned a couple, but this is CLIA wave. I said, so what does CLIA stand for? To explain that to me. Well, no, we get medical doctors telling us about that. Really? Real medical doctors? You mean doctors that with the meds? Wow.
You had to go, you went and made an antibody deal in a garage, in a driveway.
It was like an antibody. We were making an antibody deal in the driveway of a fast food restaurant at 4 in the morning. And then I had to drop the bag.
On both sides.
dropping the bags off to somebody else at a gas station. Well, yeah, so it's not necessary. These are people's
And this
lives.
was like, and this was like 5 weeks ago. So we were still relatively new 4 weeks ago. So it was still, the COVID thing was still like,
We knew that they were, but you and I, we were saying they were bootleg back then. I mean, you're putting people's lives at risk. Don't put my life at risk at 4 o'clock in the morning. Just stop it. Stop. Follow the science. Let's all follow the science. Let's follow the science.
called me
Don't
up.
get me
You were
started.
like, I'm like, whoa, slow down. What are you saying? Like, whoa. I'm like, did you say you just picked up some antibodies at a fast food?
Dude, you're like, dude, you actually you have the test? I'm like, dude, I got 2 bags of them. I don't know there's no box, there's nothing. And then, we're not going to go further into detail, but if you're watching, you know who you are. You know who you are. There's nothing about the virus that's a hustle. So don't do it. Don't do it. Stop. Stop.
Yeah, you're right. All right. You want to do the numbers?
No, you do the numbers.
was
I've done
funny.
enough bootleg. Let's do real numbers. We did bootleg tests. Let you do the real numbers. And I got to get a
All right.
better picture. I got bootleg hair.
That's still my favorite haircut, dude. I really like it. It looks good. All right. All right. So let's start with Worldometer. Let's go. Let's see. These are the number of cases. Wow, man. Look how fast, dude. Think about it. We were at like probably about a week ago. We were at. Do you remember? Like I kept saying this. It took us 4 months to get to 1 million cases. It took us a month to get to 2 million cases. It took like 3 weeks to get to 3 million cases, and it's taken us less than 2 weeks to get to 4 million cases. We are going to get to 4 million cases very, very, very soon. This is unbelievable. And as you can see, we added, about every day, it's about 70,000 cases, and then number of new deaths. Again, we're around 5,000 every day. You're going to start hearing something that's going to get worse and worse over time here. You can see there was definitely an uptick in that line right there as we are continually approaching those 4 million cases. Here you could see the number of deaths have gone down. It's usually at about 5,000, but the line has not responded to it. So I don't know if this is a function of error or why this line is not trending downward as much as I would have expected. I'm wondering if the folks that making these graphs recognize that these are estimates, and because I would have thought that these would have fallen, but I think what they're doing is they're estimating a certain mean, but I think that these are going to probably, we had talked about how this was a trend going down. When it started going up, I wasn't surprised. It's kind of going down again. So we'll see. My gut is that this is going to start going up, especially when we start to see the openings to the states here in the US and then of course in Brazil. That has just really not done much in the form of social isolation. Here in the US,
Just real quick, just a quick blurb, because I was asked that question earlier. People really don't know what's going on in Brazil. Can you just like in 2 sentences, just say a blurb about that?
Sure. I mean, if there is a lack of leadership that we have said here over and over again, we've talked about a lack of centralized or coordinated leadership here in the U.S. As a result of our president. The president of Brazil is known as Trump of the tropics. His name is Jair Bolsonaro. And he basically patterns himself much like our president in his mannerisms and in the way he talks to the press and treats other people. And as a result, the best example I can give is that President Bolsonaro fired his health minister, who about 2 weeks ago, right after he appeared on TV to promote social distancing, staying indoors and wearing masks when you go outside. He was fired immediately after that. When you look at the favelas of Brazil, the favelas of Brazil are what we would refer to as, for lack of a better word, kind of the inner city, or lack of a better word, these are not words I enjoy using, but ghettos or what have you. Those are what favelas are. These are really the areas of highest poverty in Brazil and Rio de Janeiro. And the folks that are actually mandating social distancing there in the favelas are actually the gangs. And the gangs are the ones that are mostly maintaining order, because of course, in dire situations like that, the poor are oftentimes the first to be forgotten about. And so it is a interesting twist of fate. I'm sure books and movies will be written about that at some point in the near future. But Brazil is a I meant to put Brazil slides in here today, and I could, while you're talking, Doc, I can kind of show a quick Brazil slide, but the number of cases in Brazil are just skyrocketing upwards, and it's a shame. One of the things this does lead to another point, and that is we are going to see a lot of mortality as a result of this virus, especially in poor countries. And it just, there are times where I boast, hear me today, quote me tomorrow. And those are, this is not one of them that I say, hear me today, quote me tomorrow. And it pains me to do that. Much like when Doc Griggs will tell you, when we first started, I was very concerned about nursing homes and ICE detention centers and carceral systems, the prison systems, and homeless camps, and every single one of those entities, well before the virus has hit each one of them brutally hard. And it's not hard to see how we're going to see the same thing in resource poor countries, especially those that are the most impoverished. And I will say this, remember, I say this once, I say it a million times, infectious diseases are diseases of the poor. And nothing will highlight that more than what we're going to see here with the coronavirus. Doc?
No. So again, I just wanted to speak more about Brazil, and over the course of all of the things that we do, I do want to start to bubble the situation in the nursing homes back up, because it's kind of fallen to the wayside, as has in the messaging. Was asked last night before I crashed, I understand all this with reopening and the mask, but are we still supposed to wash our hands? Whatever happened to that? Like,
yeah, some messaging never changes, and part of that should just be washing hands. So, I would have responded to that if that had been me that answered it yesterday, with a little bit of a smart ass. That would have been sort of like what your grandmother says, right? Like, if you were doing it beforehand, you go ahead and do it afterhand, right? If you weren't doing it beforehand, don't do it. If you never shoved a hairdryer up your nose, now's not a time to start.
My grandmother would say, what kind of fool would blow a hairdryer up there? Just, yes, I got it, Mom. Common sense. But we do need to continue with the messaging, because people are coming into the realization that the old world that they knew is no more. People are coming into the realizations at different times. So
yes,
that's all I have for that.
Yes, they are. And that's crazy too. That is part of the crazy, isn't it? Now people are starting to realize this, and it is crazy. All right, so let's continue on. All right, so U.S. we're at about 102 million cases with 71,000 deaths. Overnight, we added about 18,000 cases and almost 2,000 deaths. It still just blows me away. These are people's lives, right? And just to give you an idea, because we talk about fighting coronavirus is like fighting a war. 58,000 died in Vietnam. We're at how many? 71,000 deaths. So the next one up is going to be World War I. I bet we leave May and we hit World War I. I bet we leave May and we hit World War I. There was a CDC document that was leaked to the press last night that showed that not only was there going to be excess mortality, but they were talking about 236,000 deaths potentially by the end of the summer because of what's happening with the reopening and what have you. But we'll get into that in a moment. When you look at the cases that are epi curve, we're kind of holding more or less stable. When you look at mortality rate, again, we're not seeing the overall mortality that, and again, this curve here is different from what we're seeing here. This Worldometer is a little bit more up to date than New York Times. So tomorrow you're going to see an increase, a bump here. The Worldometer, you could see the New York Times only does to May 4th, and Worldometer is valid to the 5th. Here is where we are with our testing. We're still very, very low on our testing. 23,000. When Doc Griggs and I started this live podcast here, we were at about 3,000 tests per million. We're up to 23. When you look at the COVID tracking project, this is a new slide that we showed yesterday. Not much has changed. When you take the number of positives and divide it by the total number of tests, which is about a little bit more than 7 million tests, we're still about we're still at a percentage of about 14%. And remember, we talked about we want to be less than 5%. 5% is kind of the sweet spot. When you look at Louisiana and our case rates, we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're 7th in the country. You know, at one point we had the most cases in the world. So it's nice to know that, you know, that we are not there anymore, but that's social distancing. 100%, social distancing, is unbelievably, of course, important, but you can see our total cases is almost 30,000. Overnight, we added 223 cases. Our total deaths are over 2,100, and new deaths were about 51. These are our mortality rate. We're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're 5th in the country with a mortality rate of 454 per million people. And then lastly, when you look at testing rates, we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th in the country for testing rates, about 40,000 tests per million people. And then let's look at the epi curves. Again, I had mentioned, or I've been predicting that this was going to be our new normal, and here it is. This is the quintessential definition of a new normal. In terms of these are going to be the number of cases that are just going to go. We're going to just see these, upticks of cases every once in a while as we go. And then here is our final mortality curve, and it looks like it's maybe, if you look hard, maybe we can drive a line, and that line is trending downward. So with that, I'll kick it back over to you, Doc Griggs.
So the line is trending downward, meaning about how many deaths per and how many days?
Yeah.
Total number of deaths in how many days right now?
It's I would have to go, but let me go back to it and check, but I am not 100% clear. It's looking like, oh, I just shared our YouTube feed, sorry. But it's going up. I mean, we're going to start seeing more and more of it. So here we will see here our mortality. It's hard to say. I didn't calculate that number, Doc. I'm sorry.
No worries. The point is that no matter what, we're experiencing wartime culture, and the fact that we're going to get comfortable losing a certain number of people in our community, and it's all fun and games until it's your turn. Either your turn that we talk about, or someone that you know or love that's talked about. This virus is very real. Doc, you made a very good point. That remember that these numbers, the lines, are people. These are sick people. Anyone that is watching that has had the coronavirus, that has lost someone to coronavirus, understand how serious of a disease this is. Again, a mild case is 80% of the people, and it sounds great. We think about a mild cold. A mild version of this virus is the sickest flu you've ever had without going to the hospital. And then what we don't talk about, and we'll get more into that down the line, Doc, is the recovery after, even if you don't make it to the hospital, the process of recovery after your body goes through any type of pneumonia, viral pneumonia, or any type of illness. It's not all of a sudden one day you wake up and you feel fine with it. This has been here, and it's going to be here for a while. Doc?
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I of course can't add anything to that except for it's just horrifying. You and I have expressed this many, many times, and we will continue to express it. that we just live in a country in which we will reach a point where we're going to accept the mortality that we're going to see. And it's really, it's shocking to me that it's being normalized is what it's happening. So Dr. Riggs, while you were talking, I just went and just quickly did a quick search on Brazil. So here you can see the number of cases just rocketing upward. I mean, it's an unbelievable increase in cases that we're seeing here in Brazil. And so this is why I'm watching Brazil very, very carefully. And then if you look at the mortality rate as well, I mean, look at that. Look at the steepness of that line. You know, if we go to, information is beautiful, I bet you that Brazil is probably one of those countries that's got, it's doubling every couple days. So
quick question, Doc. I just made an association that you brought up early on in this. Can you leave that graph back up?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I want to go back to a validated theory that you expounded upon way early in this. When was Mardi Gras?
Mardi Gras was February 25th.
And when did they have their spike? When did it start?
Yeah.
When did the numbers start to go up? Where does it say 7 day average? What day is that, roughly?
So here's so here's February 26th. So they're starting with February 26th for obvious reasons, is because that's the day after, that was theoretically when they would start seeing cases. So here's your 7 days. So within 14 days, you're going to start seeing an increase in cases. So that takes you right about there. That's when you start seeing exponential growth.
So I mean, I'm not giving too much away, I hope, but can we talk about super spreader internationally, or make reference to the Philadelphia parade of 1918?
Yeah, go ahead. I would encourage you.
Well, no, I was just saying, well, and back during the pandemic of 1918, it was September, October. They wanted to do a welcome home for the World War I soldiers, and they were advised not to. They did it anyway. It's about 200,000 people. And from that one parade, I don't remember the numbers, resulted how many deaths, Doc?
I can't remember if it was 400. I can't remember if it was 40,000 or 200,000. I can't remember.
Maybe. It was a few thousand deaths from one parade. Like it was, yeah. We'll look up the exact numbers, but my point is that in places that have super spreader events, remember at first they were trying to vilify us. Oh, they knew about it. We didn't know anything about it during Mardi Gras. But the point is that the virus, that's the whole point of us saying social distancing.
Yeah. I knew. We talked about that there was we talked about that there was a potential of something.
Right, we did. As a matter of fact, I think you might have said it on the radio. Yeah, maybe.
I said it on the radio, and I for sure said it because it was in the newspapers. Because the Lens called and asked for a quote on that, and I in a week and a half before Mardi Gras, I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely a problem. Oh yeah, we talked about it, didn't we? That was the show where you dropped an F-bomb?
No, I never do that. No, my mom might be watching this. Not at all, Mom. I don't know what he's talking about.
You mean like, I was talking about Farfanugan.
Yeah, Farfanugan. Well, that tells our age. I remember the Farfanugan. But the point is that the virus doesn't spread the virus, in spite of the conspiracy theories, in spite of anything that you might think, in spite of your emotional impatience with wanting to get back to a life that will never be. We will not, in any time in the near, and I won't say distant, we won't see the former life that we had before.
Listen to
but what's that?
I said, listen to you, man.
Yeah, right. But you talk about, just like one day we said, don't wear a mask, and 2 days later we did. I get it. I more than believe, because I feel it. Understand this, and I said this on a panel, and I've said this, we talked about it. We're tired too. We don't, if we never had to social distance again, I think neither Doc nor I would. We're all part of the same community. We don't know anything about this virus. There's nothing that we can do other than patiently manage our expectations and keep working to discover more and more so we can figure out how we can live our best lives moving forward. Remember, the staying at home isn't a punishment. You're actually safe at home, not punished at home. The virus doesn't spread the virus. People spread the virus. the more you're around a cluster of people, the more likely you are to have some tragic things happen to your family. And I can speak about that from first experience.
Yeah, you're right. All right, should we quickly just move on with our updates and then call it?
Yep.
If you guys are tuned in, please, you guys are listening to Doc Griggs and Dr. Dare daily COVID updates. We do have a podcast available. You can find more information at noisefiltershow.com. We also do have a podcast that comes out every morning, and you can find that on all your favorite podcast catchers, called Noise Filter, and that's one word. All right, number one, let's do these one at a time here. All right, Doc? The White House is considering winding down the Corona task force in weeks to come. What are your thoughts about that? The idea of winding down the task force.
So I don't even like that verbiage. Are you kidding me? Winding down, we're still winding up. It's I got nothing. Like, are you kidding? Like, what?
And also, what do you think
they're considering?
What do you think about the fact that they asked Fauci, the House are doing these, investigations and oversight? That's the job of the House, is to do oversight. And the White House has barred anybody from the task force to go and give oversight to the oversight committee, but they are allowed to do it for the Republican oversight committees from the Senate side, but they're not allowing them to do it on the House side.
Yeah, I'm not getting in that. I'm not doing it. I'm not getting into politics of it. Politics can speak for themselves. I'm talking about the science. Doesn't make sense to be winding down any task force. We're going to be dealing with the coronavirus for a long time, and they need guidance all the way through. Doc, I don't get in that.
All right, an ousted federal scientist said he was pressured to steer contracts to clients of a well-connected consultant, whatever. That to me is just the same old corruption that we see time and time again. Here we go. As outbreaks shutter meat packing plants, meat is getting scarcer in grocery aisles and drive-thrus. I thought that Skinny Eric would just not care about something like that, right? He doesn't need meat anymore.
The part that bothers me about that is, from what I'm understanding, is they're telling people that they won't allow them to collect unemployment. They're like being forced back to work, which I think is absolutely unjust. And I think it's wrong. I stay out of politics, but I do speak up for people. That's absolutely wrong, and it's dangerous. And that's a total disrespect, and it's exploitation of a health disparity and a need. People need to work, and if you give them full information and you have let them know ways that they can be supported. I get it, but you can't. That's wrong, and I disagree with it.
And what happens if those folks end up getting coronavirus and they try to sue their employee?
Yeah, so they're going to be absolved from all of it. So the interesting thing about forcing people to go back to work and reopening and all that, and I will say this, the people that want to force people to go back to work, they should be to go back to work on the front lines with them.
I 100% agree with you, brother.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what else we got. Let's see. The reality of the virus in the U.S. is an unrelenting crush of cases and deaths. Wow, that is the most.
In water is wet news.
And that gravity pushes everything down, pulls everything down, right?
Wow.
No, that is it. Look at the reality of the virus in the U.S. An unrelenting crush of cases and deaths.
You mean that's all? We've had updates from every leader in the world, and we've been talking about the same thing. You mean the fact that we can't go outside? The fact that you and I are in the same building but Zooming because we're practicing social distancing? You mean the fact that people have lost their lives, and we're continuing to talk about the number of lives to epic world war proportions every single day means that, really, wow, I never would have known.
Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions on your side?
Yes, my question, who knew? Who knew?
I don't have any questions here. Let me check on Facebook, see if we have any questions there. Nope. No, but I do. That is a goofy picture of me. I appreciate Graham reminding me that was a thing. I'll take that down immediately. All right. I think we unless you have anything else, we gotta record.
Not only is that picture, your mask is below your nose. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, how interesting. How interesting. On that, I think we should drop the mic.
Hold on, Mrs. Griggs. Mrs. Griggs, you see, I do wear my mask up here.
I'm sorry. What'd you say? What'd you say? What'd you say? What'd you say?
You should see him. He's like,
Yeah.
he's wearing his. Can you see him?
I'm just trying to fit in. I'm just trying to fit in around. I'm trying to fit in. I'm trying to fit in. Other than that, I got nothing else.
All right. We are slowly building this show up. Thank you guys for tuning in. You can reach out to us on the website at noisefiltershow.com. Please subscribe to our shows. Please leave us ratings. Please leave us comments. This way more people will be able to hear the great information that Doc Griggs and I have to share every day with respect to the morning COVID podcast, in which we give you 5 to 7 very high yield stories that really set the record straight, while at the same time giving you the information you need to help make the best decisions you need for you and your family. In the interim, please stay home. Please wear a mask when you go outside. Please continue to wash your hands. Please remember that health is a human right. Doc?
Check, get fit, get moving, get some sleep, and don't wear your mask like this.